Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Mehr and it's been so long. I know I haven't posted in a while, but today I'm back with a video talking about all the books I've read in the last few months. And I'm back with my iconic big beautiful bookshelf. It's grown even bigger in the time that we haven't seen each other. I am a bit ashamed to admit that I haven't read fiction books, but I'm reading some right now and I hope to read more in the future. But today I'm talking about 5 non-fiction books that I've read, and I think you should too. The first book I'll be talking about is Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. Those of you who know about the Chicken Soup franchise, it's basically a collection of short stories that people from all over the world submit about a specific topic or a specific category. I've read 2 Chicken Soup books earlier as well. One was for children and the other was for the Indian teenage soul. So those of you who know what chicken soup inherently means here is refers to something warm and comforting that heals you from inside. So if you consume media, you know that when someone is sick, like when a character in a movie or a book is sick, chicken soup automatically makes them feel better because of how tasty and how warm it is. Similarly, these stories, especially all the books you read, are filled with comforting warm stories and just relatable things that make you feel a little bit less alone in this world. And I have nothing specific to say about the Chicken Soup book in general because I've read like so many short stories about so many different people about various topics, including relationships, breakups, navigating school, navigating conflicts, and a lot of other things. But I think it was a really good book in general, and it's just something nice that you can read on any random day. The second book I read was Generative Artificial Intelligence by Harvard Business Review. It's my first HBR book and I think it was really good, like 5 stars. I love learning about technology, AI, and also business. So I think this was the perfect book to read, especially at a time when AI, especially generative AI, is changing our world so rapidly. And it feels like we can't keep up, like genuinely. And yes, it is very scary to sometimes think about how fast our world is progressing. But the books like these and also just like keeping yourself updated about technology can make you feel a little bit less isolated from the change that's happening outside in the world. So this book specifically talked about how generative artificial intelligence could be leveraged to change business and how it is already changing business in the 21st century. Not only does it cover how it will change human creativity or marketing or sales, it also talks about intellectual property and it talks about how to use this AI responsibly. What I liked about this book was that it talked about how there were certain elements in a business that humans had to do, like AI couldn't replace us. And yes, it is scary to think about that AI will replace so many jobs in the future, but what I've learned is that it's very important to make it your best friend. It's very important to leverage AI so that you can make your job productive, so that you can make your life productive and you can make your life better. But at the same time, it's really important to use it responsibly, to know about the effects it has on the environment and on the world, and to just, in general, like learn more about it because this change is inevitable. Then again, I'm just repeating myself. The third book I've read is Mother Pious Lady by Santosh Desai, Making Sense of Everyday India. Now, before reading it, I did do a little bit research about the author Santosh Desai, mainly because I hadn't heard of him at all ever. He's a very famous columnist and writer, and this book essentially is a collection of all of his columns. It was published in 2010, so I'm assuming all of his columns in the early 2000s, and all of them are about Indian middle class life in the 1980s and in the 1990s. And as someone who likes to read about culture, traditions, lifestyle, all of those things, it was really interesting. Though it was just columns, I would have loved it if they used, the Indian middle class, like this entire theme, and wrote a whole book. But this book was really enjoyable as well. One of my favorite columns, I don't remember it exactly, but it talked a little bit about how matrimonial ads are presented in the newspaper and how, the perfect groom or the perfect bride is described as, fair, thin, tall, earns this much money, father is in business, mother is a homemaker, and does and has all these qualities and hobbies or whatever. So, and I genuinely enjoyed reading it because there were like some really witty parts, some parts that made me think about it. But in all, it was about things that existed, cultures that existed, traditions that existed, especially in North India. And it talked about how society was structured, how celebrities were portrayed, how movies were made, how, transport worked, food worked, clothing worked, money worked. And it was just really fun to read, honestly. It makes you think a lot about how the, it makes you think a lot about the time that existed before you were alive. The fourth book I read is I Hate Men by Pauline Armange. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but this is one book that I felt like, it just spoke to me, like it genuinely did. And a little bit backstory about the book. It is a 96-page essay that she initially published and only had, I think, 200 or 400 copies. But when the French Ministry for Gender Equality tried to censor her book and tried to ban it, it actually made the book more popular and then sold 1 million copies and has been translated into a lot of languages. Now, what spoke to me about this book was that Pauline talking about how misandry is not something that exists in itself, it exists as a direct response to misogyny. Other than this, she talks about distancing yourself from toxic masculinity, from men who make you feel shitty about the world, and invest in female friendship, invest in sisterhood, and invest in women who make you feel amazing. And this can be in terms of women in your family, women as friends, or women as partners. Other than this, I am not saying that this book focused on harming men. It focused on hating them the same way a lot of hate in the world is directed towards women that we see as patriarchy. But she also talks about how she loves her husband. So this whole concept of hating men is hating patriarchy, hating misogyny, not actual men in her life, because she does talk about liking, her husband. So I am actually going to read like a few bits from the book that I felt were amazing. This one is on page 32. If misandry is a characteristic of someone who hates men and misogyny that of someone who hates women, it has to be conceded that in reality, the two concepts are not equal, either in terms of the dangers posed to their targets or the means used to express them. Let's not forget that misogynists use weapons ranging from online abuse to deadly attacks, like the one that took place at the École Polytechnique in Montreal in 1989, or the Elliot Rogers 2004 killing spree in Isla Vista, California, that have never seen their misandrist equivalents. Misandry and misogyny cannot be compared, quite simply because the former exists only in reaction to the latter. There's one more part which I felt was really good. When women give themselves permission to live alone, to experience life, to experience single life as a life like any other, with its shortcomings as well as its rewards, rather than a punishment, they rediscover that they don't actually need a man, or at least not just any man in their lives. They relish their autonomy and freedom, and when they do find a partner, it isn't because they need one, it's because they've met a person they genuinely want to commit to with the intention of creating a relationship based on mutual fulfillment. Not because being single is a terrifying idea and Monsieur needs someone to wash his socks and organize his diary. Okay, this was really good. And I think everyone should read it, not only women, but everyone should read it, because it actually makes you realize how patriarchy has affected every single part of a woman's life, and how there is literally no genuine equivalent to misogyny, because a lot of the attacks, a lot of hate that's directed towards people online or in real life is directed towards women and females and not men. And it's not made me into a man hating individual, it's just made me more aware about the kind of society we live in and about gender and about equality. The last fifth book I've read is Our Living Constitution by Dr. Shashi Tharoor. a concise introduction and commentary. So those of you who know me personally, you know that I love Indian politics. I love to know about law, about the constitution, and just in general know about our rights. And when I first read about this book, read about its book launch, I thought it was going to be exactly that. But I guess it wasn't really a concise introduction and commentary. Okay, before I start, I'd like to share something amazing about this book. It's a signed copy. Best thing ever. I love Dr. Shashi Tharoor, and not because of his politics or because of the political party that he's aligned with, but because of his speaking skills, because of what a great orator he is and how he can articulate all his thoughts like so perfectly. So the book launch I went to was amazing. It had a lot of people who I've always wanted to meet, always wanted to see in person, and you basically hear them speak. And it was amazing. I'll talk a little bit about it in the description. But let's talk about the book in general. First of all, I felt like, okay, so when they were introducing the book at the book launch, they talked about it being something that any common person could read and they could understand, because the constitution is such a long, technical document that not every individual understands it to the full extent, right? So this book was supposed to provide like a shorter commentary on the creation, as well as how the constitution has been interpreted and how it is being interpreted in the future. And while I felt like it was thoroughly researched, I did read this article on Bar and Bench about how it was missing a lot of elements that it should have included. Now, I read it a while ago, so what I remember from it was that it talked about Nehruji and Patelji's contribution in the creation of India as we know it, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's contribution to the constitution. Obviously, we know that he was a chairperson of the drafting committee, right? But I guess what it didn't talk in detail about was the creation of the constitution. I guess that's sort of valid because it talks about the constitution right now, not the creation. But as someone who loves to know about the creation and who loves to talk about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, I would have really enjoyed if it talked a little bit more about the creation bit. Now, I actually have to like talk about a few like actual factual things that I researched and found out about through this Bar and Bench blog. So the first thing is that it focuses a lot on developments that took place during the Congress governments. And while I know about Indian politics, I did not know enough about it to know that all the developments that Dr. Tharoor mentioned in the book were done during Congress governments, right? So the ones that were mentioned were Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, right to education, and inclusion of the word socialist and secular. What it doesn't mention was the National Democratic Alliance, the NDA government's 103rd Amendment, which talked about economic reservation. It was not covered at all in the book. It also did not fully cover the Janta Dal government's 44th Amendment to undo excesses of the emergency. And but overall I felt like it was a good book, and while it was supposed to be something for the common people, for the masses, I did feel like at some places it did become a little bit technical, a little bit hard to keep up because of how long the sentences were, and how basically, since it was a short book, a lot of the points that Dr. Tharoor touched up upon couldn't be explained in detail because that's the nature of the book. It had to be short and small and concise. So I guess I would have enjoyed like a longer book, but better explained and something that goes deep into certain topics like communal politics, about the creation of India, with from princely states, the creation of the constitution, all of those things. So while it was a good book, I feel like there are other books better than this particular one to know about the constitution, and I guess it was okay in general, to be honest. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below if you've read these books, or next time if there's anything specific that you'd like to see. Till next time, toodles!